Welcome back to Insight Lens, the channel where we cut through the noise and uncover the hidden stories shaping our world. From global finance to political power, we bring you the insights others overlook. For decades, the world's richest and most powerful have hidden their fortunes in the shadows. But in 2016, a single leak of more than 11 million files tore away the veil, exposing how politicians, billionaires, and corporations secretly moved their money offshore. This was the Panama Papers, a financial scandal that toppled leaders, rocked economies, and revealed the true scale of global tax evasion. Today, we dive inside the leak that shocked the world and ask, what does it mean for the rest of us?
In 2016, the world was shaken by one of the largest financial data leaks in history, the Panama Papers. More than 11.5 million documents, totaling around 2.6 terabytes of data, were leaked from the Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca. These documents revealed how hundreds of thousands of shell companies and offshore accounts had been set up across jurisdictions like Panama, the British Virgin Islands, and the Seychelles. The goal was often the same: to hide assets, evade taxes, and launder money on a massive scale. The leak implicated politicians, business tycoons, athletes, and even world leaders, exposing a hidden architecture of global finance that few ordinary people had ever seen before. The impact was immediate. Protests broke out in several countries, governments promised investigations, and the public demanded accountability. Yet beyond the headlines, the Panama Papers exposed something much deeper: a global system where the wealthy and powerful can move money across borders with near total anonymity, while the rest of society is left to shoulder the tax burden. According to the State of Tax Justice 2024, tax abuse today drains around $492 billion every single year from governments worldwide. Of this, about $347 billion comes from profit shifting by multinational corporations, while $145 billion is lost to wealthy individuals hiding their fortunes offshore. The Panama Papers were not just a scandal of one law firm, but a wake-up call about how deeply entrenched this offshore system has become.
The Panama Papers were just the tip of the iceberg. Behind the headlines lies a vast global financial system designed to conceal wealth. Academic studies estimate that around 8% of all household financial wealth worldwide, roughly the equivalent of 10% of global GDP, is secretly held in offshore tax havens. These are not small sums hidden in distant bank accounts, but trillions of dollars moved through carefully structured shell companies, trusts, and anonymous bank accounts. The International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, through its Offshore Leaks database, has compiled evidence from multiple leaks, including the Panama Papers, Paradise Papers, and Pandora Papers. Altogether, the data points to nearly 810,000 offshore entities, companies, funds, and trusts used by politicians, celebrities, criminals, and corporations to shift money away from the public eye. When it comes to the value of assets hidden offshore, the estimates vary, but all are staggering. Conservative figures suggest about $5 to $6 trillion is tucked away beyond the reach of tax authorities. Other reports, such as those by financial investigator James S. Henry, put the figure much higher, between $30 and $36 trillion. To put that in perspective, even the lower estimate exceeds the entire annual GDP of Japan and Germany combined. This is not simply about wealthy individuals shielding their savings. Entire industries are built around the secrecy business. Law firms drafting contracts, banks opening anonymous accounts, consultants designing shell companies, and governments offering tax breaks to lure this hidden wealth. It is a parallel financial system, legal in form, but morally questionable in practice, that drains resources from public budgets and deepens inequality worldwide.
When the global financial crisis struck in 2008, Iceland became one of its most dramatic casualties. Within months, the country's entire banking sector collapsed under the weight of reckless speculation and foreign debt. The Icelandic stock market lost more than 90% of its value. The national currency, the krona, plunged by about 50%, and the economy shrank by nearly 10% of GDP over the following years. For ordinary Icelanders, the consequences were devastating. Thousands of families lost their homes and life savings, unemployment soared, and trust in the political system collapsed almost overnight. The crisis left deep scars that would shape Icelandic politics for the next decade. Against this backdrop, the Panama Papers delivered another shock. The leaked documents revealed that Wintris Inc., an offshore company registered in the British Virgin Islands and linked to Prime Minister Sigmundur David Gunnlaugsson and his wife, held claims worth millions of euros against Iceland's failed banks, including Kaupthing and Landsbank. To the public, this was more than a technical financial detail, it was a betrayal. While citizens were forced to endure austerity and the painful cleanup of the banking collapse, their own leader appeared to have a hidden stake in the very institutions that had ruined the nation. The revelation ignited some of the largest protests in Iceland's history. Crowds filled the square outside the parliament in Reykjavik, banging pots and pans, demanding answers and accountability. The scandal grew so intense that within just a few days, Prime Minister Gunnlaugsson was left with no choice but to resign from office, making Iceland the first major political casualty of the Panama Papers. The episode was a powerful reminder of how fragile public trust can be and how quickly it can unravel when leaders are seen to play by different rules than the people they govern. In Iceland, the Panama Papers were not just about offshore finance. They were about justice, fairness, and the credibility of democracy itself. The Panama Papers did not just expose abstract financial flows. They put names, faces, and institutions at the center of the scandal. The leaked files from Mossack Fonseca showed how politicians, billionaires, athletes, and even global corporations had quietly used offshore networks to move and protect their wealth. Among those implicated were heads of state and government officials from countries as diverse as Iceland, Pakistan, Argentina, and Ukraine. Former British Prime Minister David Cameron faced a political storm when it was revealed that his late father had directed an offshore fund. In Pakistan, revelations involving then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's family triggered years of political battles that eventually led to his disqualification from office. The papers also highlighted how global elites relied on prestigious institutions to shield their fortunes. The Rothschild family, through its trust operations in the Cook Islands, had established at least 20 trusts and multiple holding companies, arrangements technically legal, but emblematic of how the wealthy leveraged secrecy jurisdictions unavailable to ordinary citizens. It wasn't only individuals. Multinational corporations also featured in the leaks. Companies like Amazon, though not directly tied to Mossack Fonseca, have long been scrutinized for shifting billions of dollars of profits through tax-friendly jurisdictions like Luxembourg. In 2020, Amazon's European subsidiary reported nearly $44 billion in revenues, while paying no corporate income tax thanks to internal accounting structures. Cases like this underscored how offshore strategies are not limited to corrupt politicians or shady businessmen, but extend to some of the most powerful corporations on Earth. The documents also tied into other leaks, such as the Pandora Papers, which later exposed high-profile figures like Lee Jae-young, heir to the Samsung empire, who established offshore entities in the British Virgin Islands. Together, these revelations painted a picture of an entrenched global system, one where money and influence flowed seamlessly through a labyrinth of shell companies and secret accounts. What made the leaks explosive was not only the number of powerful figures implicated, but the common thread connecting them all: a reliance on secrecy. Whether in politics, business, or finance, the Panama Papers revealed that offshore networks had become a universal tool of the elite, blurring the line between legal tax avoidance and outright corruption. While the Panama Papers focused largely on offshore centers like Panama, the British Virgin Islands, and Switzerland, the leaks also raised an uncomfortable truth. The United States itself has become one of the world's most attractive tax havens. In states like Delaware, Nevada, and Wyoming,
laws make it remarkably easy to establish shell companies with little or no disclosure of ownership. In fact, experts often note that it is easier to set up an anonymous company in Delaware than to obtain a library card in some American cities. These entities can then be used to move money, buy property, or hide assets with minimal scrutiny. Even more striking is the case of South Dakota, which has quietly transformed into a global hub for financial secrecy. Over the past few decades, South Dakota rewrote its trust laws to attract international wealth. Today, it is home to a booming trust industry that manages more than $360 billion in assets. Unlike traditional tax havens in the Caribbean, these U.S.-based trusts benefit from the protection of the American legal system while offering the same secrecy and tax advantages sought by the global elite. The Panama Papers, a subsequent leak in 2021, revealed just how far this had gone, showing how foreign billionaires, political figures, and business tycoons had shifted wealth into South Dakota trusts. While technically legal, the use of these structures raises profound questions about fairness and accountability. How can the U.S. call out tax havens abroad while allowing its own states to operate as havens at home? This paradox highlights the deeper problem. Offshore finance is not limited to small islands or obscure jurisdictions. It is embedded in the heart of the global financial system. The same countries that criticize secrecy abroad often benefit from it at home. And the losers, as always, are ordinary citizens, whose governments lose the tax revenue needed for schools, hospitals, and infrastructure.
When the Panama Papers first broke in April 2016, the immediate reaction was explosive. Headlines dominated front pages around the world. Protests erupted in cities from Reykjavik to Islamabad, and governments rushed to announce investigations. For a brief moment, it seemed like the world was ready to confront the offshore system. Yet, nearly a decade later, the results are mixed. Some leaders fell, like Iceland's Sigmund Dar Gunnlaugsson and Pakistan's Nawaz Sharif. A few tax reforms were introduced, and some jurisdictions tightened disclosure rules, but the larger system remains intact. Offshore networks are still thriving, and the global elite continue to move wealth across borders with ease. Why? Because the offshore world is not a side business. It is deeply woven into the global economy. Powerful law firms, international banks, and even major accounting firms rely on it. Governments, too, benefit from the inflows of hidden capital, whether in Delaware or Dubai, in Luxembourg or Singapore. Confronting this system means challenging some of the most entrenched interests on the planet. Meanwhile, the cost of inaction falls on ordinary citizens. The $492 billion lost annually to tax abuse is money that could fund healthcare, education, or public infrastructure. Instead, it vanishes into a black hole of secrecy, leaving governments to either cut services or shift the tax burden onto working families. And so, after the initial outrage faded, a troubling silence settled in. The Panama Papers revealed not just individual scandals, but a global structure of iniquity, and yet the system endures. That silence, in many ways, is the most telling outcome of all. Proof that while information can expose corruption, changing the rules of global finance is a far harder battle. The Panama Papers were more than just a leak of documents. They were a rare glimpse into the hidden machinery of global wealth, a system built on secrecy, loopholes, and privilege. They showed how presidents, prime ministers, billionaires, and corporations all rely on the same offshore tools to shield their fortunes. They showed how trillions of dollars can vanish from national budgets while ordinary people are told there isn't enough money for hospitals, schools, or public services. And they showed, perhaps most of all, that financial power often operates in the shadows, beyond the reach of the laws that bind the rest of us. 9 years later, the questions remain. Why is it still so easy for the wealthy to hide their assets? Why do governments allow this system to persist even as they promise reform? And how long can public trust endure when the rules are so clearly tilted in favor of a powerful few? The Panama Papers gave the world a wake-up call, but whether that call leads to lasting change is still an open question. What is clear is that the story of offshore finance is far from over. The system remains in place, and the next leak,
The next Panama Papers may only be a matter of time. Until then, the challenge is ours, to keep asking the hard questions, to demand transparency, and to refuse to let the silence of the powerful drown out the voices of the many. Thank you for watching and staying with us through this deep dive into the Panama Papers and the hidden world of offshore finance. If you found this story insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more investigations like this to light. And this is just one chapter in a much larger story. In our next video, we'll continue uncovering the secrets behind money, power, and the systems that shape our world. Until then, stay curious, stay critical, and we'll see you in the next episode.